All right, let's get Grayson's grades here on the Sports Bash live on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. As last week, a lot of Fs. This week, a lot of A's as the Eagles get that winning feeling back. But before we get to that, I want to get your take on inside that locker room after the game. I saw at 97.3 ESPN.com, you can go inside the locker room. Scott has all his interviews with some key players. Was there a different feeling, Scott? Did you have that vibe of this is the win that will kickstart them?
Yeah, I don't know that I have that vibe yet. And I was asking some of the guys what makes this one different or what gives you a reason to believe that you'll start a roll here with this win. And Zach Ertz was frank and said we don't have any other choice. We have to keep winning. So there is that aspect of it that's different. I think the biggest difference in the way that, at least talking to some of the offensive guys, was they really appreciated the balance that they had by running the ball more. And I got the sense from a couple of the offensive linemen, look, they enjoyed run blocking better and not having to always kick back into pass blocking and having to read where the rush is coming from. You do that enough times, they're bound to get through and hit your quarterback. We've seen that over the last few weeks. These guys really appreciated having that downhill kind of blocking mentality, and look, it worked for them. And that balance, I think, was big enough to help them ultimately start that comeback and keep it going long enough to get the win. Whether or not they take that into another week and come up with another huge win next Monday night, we'll see. But there definitely was that exhale, that sigh of relief, and that, down 19-3, look, that sideline started to really feel like things were coming apart, but put it on themselves to get it back together and ultimately win the game. And I think that's kind of what you felt in that locker room.
You got Josh Adams. You wrote about him. There was some talk before the game that the Eagles were going to try to feature him more. He had the 52-yard run. Then they got away from him. I'm thinking to myself, this guy runs for 52 yards. Then they don't hand him the ball again for a little while. Where is this guy? Well, he ran the game out, 22 for 84. Numbers don't pop off, but did they find something finally that makes you feel you gave him an A, Josh Adams, that Doug Peterson now trusts this kid?
Yeah, I mean, I like his running style, and I thought Jason Peters hit it right on the head and said, look, he was patient. He gave us the opportunity to open up the hole and then would hit it and cut it out. He'd get through the hole and then bounce outside. We've seen a lot of these running backs this year. They're in a rush. They're trying to hit that hole, and it hasn't quite opened yet, so there's nothing there at the time. I really liked Adams' patience. And, look, he had I was counted up. I think he had 7 runs of 5 yards or more. That's winning the down. And if you do that, you really stay on schedule. You help move the chains, and we saw that yesterday. I was with you, and a lot of people were wondering what happened after the 52-yard run. Why did he disappear? The Eagles kind of snuck in that he had a little bit of a shoulder injury, which was why Corey Clement had come in for that little bit of a stretch there. But then when Adams came back, they said he would return. He did, and he had the game he did. And I just really liked what he brought to that offense. I think a lot of the guys on offense did. And I think maybe Peterson will have stumbled on something there to continue featuring Adams next week. But with at times, you don't always know.
One thing, Josh, that I have consistently said for the past few weeks with Mike is that I did not envision this season ending with Wendell Smallwood as the lead carrier and Corey Clement playing as diminished of a role as he played. I said, if this thing is going to be right, I have to think that Corey Clement is going to be involved again in some way. And yesterday, 45 yards on 5 carries. He had 3 catches, I think, 2 catches, 31 yards. Obviously had the big screen reception that led to that drive there. Adams scored the touchdown. I do think it looked to me like he's starting to come back to earth a little bit and be the Corey Clement a little bit that we saw last year.
Yeah, and I think that's who he is, quite frankly. I think he is like a good complementary back. I think that's who Corey Clement can be in this league for a while. He's a guy who gives you that ability to catch a ball out of the backfield and do something with it. We saw Adams yesterday drop a pass in the flat. That's not who he is. So I think the thing is for the Eagles to not ask him to be that guy. You have a guy that can do that. Let Adams be the guy who helps, move the pile. And when you bring Clement in, you get that change of speed and the guy who can do something out of the backfield, more of a third down back as has been in this league. I think that's Clement, there. I think what we're seeing is the Eagles starting to figure out where they go from here in the future at that position. And Adams is getting a chance to show what he can do. Clement has, shown what he can do and be that kind of a role for this team. And I think we're seeing that they're ready to move on from Wendell Smallwood. And that's, they've got Adams now as a rookie. who won't need to be paid anything more for a while. And I'm not saying that he's going to be perhaps the guy, the featured back, because I don't know that Doug truly relies on a guy ever. He likes to have that rotation. But I think right now they have something going with Adams and Clement, as you were talking about, Jeff, and I think that's where these guys may fit in, and we'll see if they can continue to do that.
To me, that's kind of the question of the offseason, Scott, not to get, put the cart before the horse, but I think we've assumed by the way the Eagles have operated the last 3 years that Doug prefers a committee approach. But at the same time, going back to year one with Ryan Matthews, who's always hurt, and then having to play Wendell a lot, he's never really had a guy that you would look at and say that's the modern version of a three-down back. LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, power runners, don't catch the ball like a Kareem Hunt, don't catch the ball like a Saquon Barkley or Ezekiel Elliott. And they've looked at those kind of guys a lot in the draft. So to me, the big thing in the offseason is, does Doug finally either demand that he gets the three-down running back, or is he just really that kind of guy that only wants a committee?
Or does he feel that Adams could be that guy? Because you remember going into his last year in college, Adams was kind of being featured as possibly a Heisman kind of candidate. Then he had a little bit of medical issue, and that's kind of what hurt him regarding the draft. Maybe they feel he's come out of that medical cloud, and he could be that guy. I think that they're going to kind of take – I think if they're smart, they take the next month here and see if he can be that guy. And if not, it would be nice to kind of see Carson Wentz have that kind of a weapon behind him, that three-down back you were talking about.
I agree with that principle. My fear, and I love the kid. I'm really proud of what he's done, but my fear is that he's an Ajayi 2.0. That Adams, that his past injuries, his immenseness, he's a huge guy, and his running style, which is very patient, but he takes a lot of contact, will not fare well for longevity. And if I'm the Eagles personally, I'm keeping Josh Adams, but if I get myself an opportunity to draft a three-down running back in the first or second round, and I got a stud, I'm not going to be thinking about Josh Adams, no matter how well he finishes at the end of the year. I just don't, you've seen it too much, man. These guys come and go so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, at that position especially, you see a lot of injuries. And I totally agree with you. I don't think that Adams is the answer long-term. I think he does fit into the puzzle. And I agree with you. If there's a guy available and you can go after him and get him, I think this team kind of needs it. I think Carson needs it. I think the offensive line needs it. And I think it would really help this offense more if they had a back there that the other team had to really worry about.
Scott Grayson, his grades are posted. Michael Bennett, Chris Long. You gave Bennett an A, Long a B. Overall, though, the pass rush in the second half, I thought that was a distinct difference in the game.
Well, it's funny. It was funny watching Twitter because Giants fans were just losing their marbles over where's Barkley and what are they doing? And, I was wondering the same thing. It just seemed crazy. And, Jeff, you and I were talking outside the locker room before we went in there about that. Mm-hmm. I think the Giants helped the Eagles get the pass rush going by going away from what was working for them. And the Eagles, to their credit, were able to make it work. And the book on Eli, when you get that big hit on him, it takes him out of his game, out of his rhythm. And Fletcher Cox laid a big one on him at one point when the tide seemed to start turning. They got in his face, they get the interception, and they started getting more hits and more plays in the backfield. And so I think it was kind of a snowball rolling downhill at that point. And those guys, to their credit, Michael Bennett, like you said, I gave him an A. I thought he was back there frequently. He's really been progressing week to week to week in certainly the right way for this defensive line, which needs that because they've had injuries there as well. And Fletcher Cox did a good job, too, of doing, like I said, delivering a quarterback hit that really kind of seemed to get in Eli's way. So, yeah, I like the way that the defensive line was playing, particularly in the second half. But, look, the problem with this team on offense and defense, there has not been a real good four-quarter game played yet. They're kind of going to need one next Monday.
Yep, you're right about that. By the way, Fletcher, 3 of the 5 hits on Eli, he was in on. Jernigan, I thought, made an impact having him right from the first play of the game. He made a stop. I thought Camus, with the tackle he made, we talked about it on the 3rd down and 18. Musty makes the tackle to kind of end the game, kind of leg whipped. That was kind of an interesting way to end that game. But, overall, Jim Schwartz with that ragtag bunch of guys in the secondary, he'd been getting ripped. People wanted him out. What'd you think of Schwartz yesterday? You gave him a B.
Actually,
you gave Schwartz a C, actually.
I gave him a C because I just didn't like the way the first – I don't like the to negate what happened in the first half just because the second half ended up being pretty well. The consistency wasn't quite there. The pass rush wasn't quite there as much in the first half. And the poor tackling, quite frankly, has been an issue in my mind all season. And I put that on the coaches. I know they don't in this league at this level. They don't practice, in my opinion, well enough in some of those areas to kind of work on form tackling. But these guys they've needed it. And you mentioned Camus Grugier-Hill. Great one-on-one tackling in the game yesterday. And then look at the difference it made. Early in the game, they were missing those tackles. They missed one or two on the big Barkley run that went for 51 yards, I believe it was, for the touchdown. They just have to do a better job of tackling. Now, Schwartz has the guys in the right position to make the plays. It's on them to ultimately do it. But when it becomes a problem week to week, I put it on the coaches to kind of help fix that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, look, they ended the game in the right way. I like the way Schwartz finished the game. Let's see if they can continue it and start well early for a change next week.
Scott Grayson's full grades are right now at 973ESPN.com. Plus, check out his story on Josh Adams. Is he the new featured back? And you can check out grades for everybody. Golden Tate moving forward. What do they do with him? And Doug Peterson, the head coach, plus Malcolm Jenkins and others right now at 973ESPN.com. All right, Scott, thanks, man.
All right, enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.